33 miles. That's it. That's the width of the most important stretch of water on planet Earth right now. And the United States just made a move there, quiet, calculated, and absolutely devastating, that could reshape China's economy, rattle global energy markets, and force a geopolitical reckoning that no one on Beijing's side of the table was fully prepared for. This isn't a Hollywood war movie. No missiles, no explosions. But make no mistake, what just happened in the Strait of Hormuz is an act of power so precise, so surgical, that military strategists are calling it one of the boldest pressure plays of the 21st century. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why, and why it changes everything for China, forever. But before we dive in, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment. I subscribe. And I'll personally welcome you into the family. With that said, let's get started. Section 1, setting the stage. Let's start with where we are, because most people couldn't point a Hormuz on a map, and that's exactly why they don't understand what's at stake. Picture this. You're looking at a satellite image of the Middle East. Find the Persian Gulf, that teardrop-shaped body of water nestled between Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. Now zoom in to where it narrows at the bottom. That sliver of blue between Iran to the north and Oman to the south? That's Hormuz, 33 miles wide at its narrowest point. And through that 33 miles flows 17 million barrels of oil every single day. Say that number out loud. 17 million barrels. Every single day. That's roughly 21% of all the oil traded globally, squeezed through a channel so narrow that supertankers have to follow 2-mile-wide designated shipping lanes just to avoid collisions. Now here's where it gets personal. Meet Mr. Wei. He runs a mid-sized auto parts manufacturing plant in Shenzhen, China. 400 workers, 12-hour shifts, orders from clients in Germany, Brazil, and South Korea sitting on his desk. 3 weeks ago, Wei's logistics manager walked into his office and told him that shipping fuel surcharges had jumped 18% virtually overnight. Wei hasn't told his workers yet. He's running the numbers, cutting margins, wondering if this is a temporary spike or the beginning of something much worse. It's something much worse, Mr. Wei. And here's why. Section 2, what the U.S. actually did. Now, a lot of news headlines will tell you the U.S. repositioned naval assets near Hormuz. They say it like it's routine. It is not routine. Here's what actually happened. The United States moved a carrier strike group, which for context is essentially a floating city of military capability, an aircraft carrier, guided missile cruisers, destroyers, submarines, into operational proximity of the Strait of Hormuz. But the warships aren't even the most significant part. The U.S. simultaneously activated what defense analysts are describing as a new maritime escort framework, essentially a system where American naval coordination prioritizes the safe passage of tankers flagged by U.S.-aligned nations. Translation: America just put itself in a position of deciding whose oil moves freely and whose gets complicated. Now who does that hurt most? China. The numbers are brutal. China imports 76% of its oil. 76%. And approximately 40% of those imports travel through the Strait of Hormuz. The Council on Foreign Relations said it plainly in their 2024 assessment. Energy dependency remains China's single greatest strategic vulnerability. And the U.S. just walked up to that vulnerability and pressed on it. Hard. But here's what makes this move so devastating. It's not a blockade. It's not technically an act of war. It's leverage. And leverage, used correctly, doesn't need to fire a single shot. China's backup plan? It barely exists. And we're going to get to that. But first, let's talk about the addiction that made China so vulnerable in the first place. Section 3. China's oil addiction. China consumes 16 million barrels of oil per day. 16 million. Every day. That makes it the second largest oil consumer on the planet, right behind the United States. And unlike the U.S., which produces massive amount of its own oil, China relies overwhelmingly on imports to feed that hunger. Now meet Lu Fang. She's a logistics coordinator for a shipping company in Guangzhou. She manages 23 trade routes. In the last quarter alone, she's had to reroute shipments twice because of cost volatility tied to Middle East instability. Her boss asked her last Monday, "What's our exposure if Hormuz gets complicated?" She pulled up her spreadsheets. She looked at the numbers. And she told him the truth. We don't have a good answer. Because here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud in Chinese boardrooms right now. China's Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the emergency oil stockpile Beijing has been quietly building for years, covers approximately 90 days of consumption. 90 days. After that, the factories slow, the supply chain cease. The economy, the machine that has lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty in a single generation, starts to grind. The International Energy Agency's 2023 World Energy Outlook put China's import dependency at 73% and projects it rising to 82% by 2030. 82% dependent on foreign oil, while the country that controls the seas just signaled it's willing to use that dependency as a chess piece. So what happens after day 90? That's the question keeping Chinese generals awake at 3 a.m. And it's the question that brings us to the wildest card in this entire deck. Section 4, the Iran wildcard. Iran, the country that physically controls the northern shoreline of the Strait of Hormuz. The country that has, more than once in history, threatened to close it entirely. In 1987, during the Tanker War, Iran mined the Gulf and attacked commercial shipping. The United States responded with Operation Earnest Will, escorting Kuwaiti tankers under American flags. Oil prices spiked. The world held its breath. Sound familiar? Now here's the twist that makes 2024 completely different from 1987. In 2021, Iran and China signed a 25-year, $400 billion comprehensive cooperation agreement. Energy, infrastructure, military cooperation. It was China's way of securing a back-channel oil supply outside of Western influence. Under this arrangement, Iran sells oil to China at a staggering 30% below market price. That's a lifeline, and China has been quietly depending on it. But, and this is where you need to lean in, those shipments don't travel on normal commercial tankers. They move on what the industry calls shadow fleets. Older vessels, falsified documentation, transponders switched off, ships that goes through radar. And the U.S., they're tracking them, every single one. The moment the U.S. decides to crack down on the shadow fleet, coordinate with allies to enforce sanctions on Iran's oil exports with real teeth, China's discounted lifeline evaporates. Overnight. That's not speculation. U.S. Treasury officials have been escalating shadow fleet enforcement action since late 2023. The infrastructure for a crackdown is already being assembled, which brings us to the third player in this game. The one nobody seems to be watching closely enough. The one who might actually hold the real key to all of this. Section 5, the Saudi pivot. The kingdom that pumps more oil than almost anyone on earth. And China's single largest official oil supplier, delivering 1.7 million barrels per day directly to Chinese refineries. Now, picture the scene. In the same week in early 2024, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's government hosted high-level meetings with both American defense officials and Chinese economic representatives. Same week, different rooms. Completely opposite agendas. The Americans came with security guarantees and defense cooperation proposals. The Chinese came with infrastructure investment and yuan-denominated trade deals. And Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia smiled, took notes from both sides, and committed to neither. Here's what makes this extraordinary, and Bloomberg Intelligence flagged this in March 2024 as unprecedented in OPEC history. Saudi Arabia is now pricing some of its oil contracts in Chinese yuan. This is a direct challenge to the petrodollar system that has underpinned U.S. global financial dominance since the 1970s. But at the same time, Saudi Arabia just expanded its U.S. defense cooperation agreements. American weapons, American training, American security umbrella. Riyadh is playing the most audacious energy poker game in history. They're telling America, we still need you for security. They're telling China, we still want your money. And they're telling the oil market, we decide. So, who does Saudi Arabia actually choose when the pressure becomes impossible to avoid? The answer is more complicated than you think. And it has everything to do with one number, $80 per barrel. The price Saudi Arabia needs to balance its own national budget. Whoever keeps oil prices where Riyadh needs them be, that's who gets the oil. Right now, That calculation is dangerously close to flipping. Section 6. China's desperate alternatives. Now, to be fair, China is not sitting still. Beijing has been wargaming this scenario for years, and they have options. Let's walk through every single one of them, and then I'll tell you exactly why each one falls short. Option 1, the Russia pipeline. The Power of Siberia pipeline already carries Russian natural gas into northeastern China. Russia and China are negotiating Power of Siberia 2, a massive expansion. The problem? It carries gas, not oil, and it's not built yet. Completion estimates range from 2030 to we'll see. In an acute Hormuz crisis, this does essentially nothing. Option 2, the Pakistan Land Corridor. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPC, is China's $62 billion overland infrastructure project running from western China through Pakistan to the port of Gwadar on the Arabian Sea. In theory, oil could offload at Gwadar and travel by pipeline into China, bypassing Hormuz entirely. In practice, the pipeline infrastructure doesn't fully exist yet. Pakistan's political instability has slowed construction repeatedly. And even at full capacity, CPC could handle a fraction of what China currently imports through sea routes. Option 3. Go green. Fast. This one is actually real, and it's the most interesting. China now manufactures 60% of the world's solar panels. It leads the planet in electric vehicle production. BYD just overtook Tesla in global EV sales. And here's a detail that tells you everything about the urgency inside China's industrial machine. Zhang Wei is an engineer at BYD's research facility in Wuhan. He told a reporter recently that his team received internal guidance, not a public announcement, not a press release, just internal guidance, that they should operate under the assumption that oil becomes unavailable in 5 years. 5 years. That's not an environmental policy. That's a national security directive disguised as a clean energy goal. Bloomberg NEF's 2024 analysis confirms that China's EV adoption trajectory could reduce oil import dependency by 18% by 2030. But here's the brutal math. 18% reduction over 6 years doesn't save you in a 90-day Hormuz crisis. Every alternative has a fatal flaw. And U.S. strategists who wrote the playbook on energy warfare during the Cold War know exactly where each flaw is, which means China is in a position it has not been in for decades. Genuinely, strategically vulnerable. And the most dangerous move in response to that vulnerability? It hasn't happened yet. Section 7. What this means to the world. Stop for a second, because I know this might feel like a U.S.-China story. A superpower chess match happening somewhere far away, in boardrooms and war rooms you'll never see. But here's why it lands at your kitchen table, wherever you live on this planet. Oxford Economics ran the numbers in 2023 on what a sustained Hormuz disruption would do to global oil prices. Their finding: a 30-day closure could spike oil prices by 75%. 75%. That's not just expensive gas. Here's what that actually looks like in real life. In Europe, heating bills in Germany and Poland, already strained from the Russia-Ukraine energy crisis, go into emergency territory. Governments face political uprisings. In Southeast Asia, the manufacturing economies of Vietnam, Indonesia, and Bangladesh would have been the great economic success stories of the 2020s. See production costs detonate. Factories close. Workers go home. And in Africa, this is the part that rarely makes Western headlines. The impact is perhaps the most devastating of all, because oil prices drive fertilizer prices, and fertilizer prices drive food prices. Meet Amara. She runs a small textile shop in Lagos, Nigeria. She doesn't use much oil personally, but the truck that brings her fabric? Oil. The generator she needs during power cuts? Oil. The imported food at her local market? Price in a system built on stable oil. Last year, she already adjusted her prices twice because of supply chain disruptions she couldn't fully explain to her customers. A Hormuz crisis doesn't stay in Hormuz. It radiates outward, through every shipping lane, every supply chain, every plate of food on every table. The world is more connected than any map shows. and more fragile than any leader publicly admits. Section 8, the endgame. Who actually wins? So who wins? Here's the answer that will genuinely surprise you. The country that wins this Hormuz standoff won't be decided by warships. It won't be decided by sanctions or shadow fleets, or even Saudi Arabia's pricing decisions. It will be decided by speed. Specifically, the speed at which each major power can decouple its economy from oil dependency altogether. And right now, that race looks like this. The United States is the world's largest oil producer, giving it a massive buffer, but it's also pouring historic investment into AI, clean energy infrastructure, and semiconductor dominance. The Inflation Reduction Act alone committed $369 billion to clean energy transition. America can afford to play the oil pressure game while building the post-oil future. That's an extraordinarily powerful position. China is accelerating its renewable build-out at a pace that genuinely alarms Western analysts. Solar, wind, EVs, battery storage. China dominates global manufacturing in all of them, but its economy still runs on oil. The transition is real. The timeline is too slow for an acute crisis. And then there's the wild card that almost nobody is talking about: India. While the US and China play this high-stakes game of energy chicken, India has been executing what the Eurasia Group's 2024 Top Risks report called the most sophisticated strategic ambiguity of any major power. India buys discounted Russian oil openly, unapologetically, while Western nations raise their eyebrows. But it's also deepening defense cooperation with the United States, building its own domestic renewable capacity, expanding refinery infrastructure designed to work with multiple supply sources. India is building an economy that doesn't need to choose a side in the Hormuz standoff, that might make it the quiet winner of a war neither it nor anyone else officially declared. And here's the part that genuinely gives me pause, the part that military analysts call most uncomfortable truth in all of this. This crisis, brutal as it is, may be doing something that a decade of climate conferences couldn't accomplish. It's forcing the fastest, most economically motivated energy transition in human history. When oil becomes a weapon, when access to it can be switched on and off by geopolitical calculation, every nation on Earth has a survival incentive to get off of it. The Hormuz pressure play isn't just reshaping U.S.-China relations. It might be, accidentally, violently, and chaotically, accelerating the end of the oil era itself. So, let's bring this all the way back to where we started. 33 miles of water, 17 million barrels a day, a U.S. naval repositioning that fired no shots, but sent a message that every energy minister, every military chief, and every factory owner from Shenzhen to Riyadh to Lagos heard loud and clear. China has 90 days of reserves. Its alternatives are either incomplete, insufficient, or years away from maturity. Its shadow oil lifeline from Iran is under surveillance. Its largest official supplier, Saudi Arabia, is playing both sides of the table. And the United States, whatever you think of its motives, just demonstrated that it still controls the most critical choke point in the global economy. This is the world we're living in now, not the world of open markets and neutral shipping lanes that global trade was built on. A world where energy is a weapon, where geography is leverage, where the country that controls the water controls the future. Here's what I want you to think about, and drop your answer in the comments, because I genuinely want to know what you think. China has 90 days. The clock is theoretically ticking. Does Beijing blink and make diplomatic concessions to reduce U.S. pressure? Or does it make a bold, aggressive countermove that risks escalating this into something far more dangerous? And bigger picture, is this the moment that finally breaks the world's addiction to oil? Or does the pressure ease before we get there? Tell me your prediction below. And if you think the real weapon in this war isn't energy at all, it's something else entirely, watch the next video. Because what's happening in the semiconductor war makes Hormuz look like the opening move.